All right, guys, so today I'm going to do kind of a different video. I'm going to be talking some Blues today, specifically a very divisive character on the Blues. There's several players like this on the Blues that, some fans love, some fans hate, but there is no more divisive player on the Blues right now than goaltender Jake Allen. I think goaltenders, maybe more than any other position, are the hardest to evaluate. You can look at save percentage and goals against, and they really don't tell the whole story. But anyway, I'm going to kind of go through year by year since Jake has become the starter in 2015-16. He really started getting significant time in the 2014-15 season, and then he played the playoffs that year as the starter. You could say that was really his first year. I'm not really ready to concede that, because that year Elliott had pretty much just as many starts as Allen. They were really splitting time. But I will look at that playoff from Jake Allen where he was given the reins, and then every season following that in the regular season. So in the 2015-16 regular season, Jake Allen's low danger save percentage was 97.88, good for 16th of 26. And those 26 goalies are the goalies that played at least 2,500 minutes. That way I kind of weeded out the backup goaltenders and some of the kind of fringe starters. There are still a couple fringe starters in there, but these are mostly starting goaltenders. So that year he was 16th of 26 in terms of low danger save percentage. So slightly below average. For medium danger save percentage, he had a 92.35. That was good for 18th of 26. So also pretty average to below average. His high danger save percentage, however, was an 80.67, and that was good for 10th of 26. Pretty decent there. So his greatest strength in his first season as starting goaltender was his high danger save percentages, which looks promising. And that year before, in the playoffs, that was the year the Blues played the Minnesota Wild and were upset by them. And that was actually Mike Yo's Wild, oddly enough. A lot of people seem to remember the playoff series last year where Allen played out of his mind and basically stole us that series against the Wild. It was pretty much the opposite of the 2014-15 playoffs, where I think a lot of people had the Wild beating us last year. And, oh, hey, Moose. A lot of people had the Wild beating us last year, and Allen kind of shut them up. He was phenomenal. When you compare his numbers last year in the playoffs to other starting goalies that playoff, the only goalie who was really better than him was Matt Murray, and he won the Stanley Cup that year. So in the 2014-15 playoffs, Allen was terrible. I think a lot of people have kind of forgotten about that because he was so good last year against the Wild in the playoffs. So a lot of people kind of have this perception that Jake Allen is a very good playoff performer and he's clutch. That's really just not true. Yeah. Among all goalies that played at least as many minutes as he did, he was first in high danger save percentage, which is pretty incredible. It's even more incredible when you hear that he was actually dead last in medium danger save percentage and dead last in low danger save percentage. So he was the best. He was better than anyone at stopping the hardest shots to stop. But he was also worse than everyone else at saving the easy ones. And I think that really is telling of Jake Allen. I mean, that's Jake Allen right there, just inconsistent. Anyway, let's move on to the 2016-17 regular season. And this is, by the way, this is all situations. So 5-on-5, 5-on-4, 5-on-3, shorthanded, all that stuff. Every shot he faced. Every shot all these goaltenders faced. Jake Allen's low danger save percentage was 97.72. Good for 20th of the 29 qualified goaltenders who played at least 2,500 minutes. That's really bad. That's awful. Medium danger save percentage, 91.84. Good for 16th of 29. And his high danger save percentage, which he was 10th of 26 the year before. This year he was 18th of 29 qualified goaltenders with a 79.12 save percentage. So anyway, this past season is where it really gets bad. In the 17-18 regular season, Jake Allen was the 5th worst in terms of low danger save percentage. A save percentage of 96.79. That was 21st of 26 qualified goaltenders. His medium danger save percentage, good for 3rd worst in the league, 90.21. And his high danger save percentage, 78.9, good for 18th of 26. Once again, his ability to stop high danger chances is his biggest strength. He's always been below average to absolutely terrible at stopping medium and low danger chances. That's just not acceptable. So I hear people talk about Jake Allen. There's a lot of people who say trade him now. Initially, I definitely was one of those guys, and I don't think trading him now would be the best idea. I don't really know who would come in and replace him. Husso's not ready. We don't really have any young guys that are ready, so we would have to sign someone else if we were going to trade Allen, or it would just have to be a straight-up one-for-one. I've heard people talk about Robin Lehner, and I've heard some of the same people that defend Jake Allen say that Robin Lehner sucks. Just so you guys know, Robin Lehner has put up better numbers than Jake Allen every single year either of them have been a starter. And that's on the Sabres, the bottom feeders. Honestly, if we could pull a Robin Lehner for Jake Allen trade off, I would do that in a heartbeat. That way you don't have to have Jake Allen for the next 3 years being a below average to bad goalie. Wow. Speak of the devil. That was very timely. And, Robin Lehner to me just strikes me as a guy who could be like the next Devan Dubnyk. He's a big guy who plays on a shit team. And, you saw that with Dubnyk when he played with the Oilers. He moves to the Wild, who are a defensive-minded team. And all of a sudden, he's a Vezina candidate. I'm not saying Robin Lehner is going to be a Vezina candidate, but I think if you moved him to the Blues, I think he could do a lot better than he's doing with the Buffalo Sabres. I really do. But once again, I just don't know if trading Allen right now with his current value is a good idea. At the same time, I hear people say, there's nothing wrong with Jake Allen. There's nothing wrong with the goaltending on this team. It's the offense. And to that, I just say that is just absolute bullshit. It's both of those things. It's the offense and it's Jake. He's never been a consistently good goalie. It just hasn't happened. I've heard people cite that he's a big-time, big-game player. He's not. In his first playoff series, you could argue he was young, he wasn't ready. Fair enough. If you're willing to take that away from him and give him last year's playoffs, fine. I'm not ready to do that. But if you're making that argument, I can kind of understand where you're coming from. To that, I say, what about this past season where, we didn't make the playoffs, but there was a long enough stretch there at the end of the season where we had must-win games. Those games were just as important, just as big a stage as a playoff game. And Allen was terrible. He was fucking atrocious the last couple games of the season in particular that were playoff games. They were must-win games, and Allen choked. This idea that he's a big game player, it's just bullshit. It's not true. And I'm not saying Allen is as bad as he was last year. I think he can be better than that. I think we all have seen him better than that. But I'm not ready to say that his performance in last year's playoffs is the goalie that he is either, because he's just disproven that. That's not who he is. He's somewhere in the middle there. And you know what? If he could just be a .915 goalie every night, I'd be totally fine with that. But this inconsistent Jake Allen that we have right now, where one night he's the best goalie in the league, the next night he's the worst. You can't have that as your goaltender and expect to go deep in the playoffs or win a Stanley Cup. You can't do that. I see a lot of guys say that to win the Stanley Cup, you have to have a guy who's going to steal you some games. And I agree that makes winning the Stanley Cup a whole lot easier. You look back at last year with Braden Holtby and his huge save in the Stanley Cup Finals. He saved them that game. He won them that game. Honestly, I don't think you need that caliber goalie to win the Stanley Cup. I don't think you need a goalie that's going to steal games, but you do need a goalie who's not going to cost you games. And Jake Allen costs you games. In that 2014-2015 series, Jake Allen cost us at least a game there. I would argue 2 games. That game 6, I think these people who argue that Jake Allen's a clutch, playoff performer are just completely forgetting the 2014-15 season where he was pulled in the decisive game 6 after giving up 2 atrocious goals. Those are 2. One was a shorthanded goal from the boards from behind the goal line. The other one was maybe 20 miles an hour, flat, saw it the whole way, no screen, through his 5-hole. There's no question that Jake Allen cost us game 6 in 2014-15. If you're willing to just overlook that and not criticize him for that, then you can't give him the credit for last year's playoffs. You have to take both. So I'm going to say, yeah, he was amazing last year, but he was also dog shit in 14-15. So we haven't had a consistent stretch of goaltending from Jake Allen yet. It just hasn't happened. And the people that think he's just going to completely change his stripes, I just don't see it. Personally, I don't think Allen plays out his full contract here in St. Louis. I just don't think it'll happen unless he just has an absolute bounce back season next year and puts up like a .920. I don't see that happening, but I don't know. I think you could do a lot worse than Jake Allen, but I don't think you're winning a Stanley Cup with Jake Allen. I just really don't. I don't believe that. Anyway, guys, I could talk all day about this, but that's my opinion. If there's any Blues fans out there, let me know if you agree. I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.